And now for the last session of the Americas Zone and the Infrastructure Summit of the Singapore FinTech Festival. Hope you've enjoyed our day so far. This last session, we'll be looking at the evolving payments ecosystem. And taking this discussion forward is Melissa Guzy, co-founder and managing partner at Arbor Venture Management Company. She will be moderating a panel consisting of Alfred Kelly, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Visa, Anthony Eisen, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director at AfterPay, and Nium, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer, Prajit Nanu. Prajit Nanu will be on site in person here in Singapore. Let's now join Melissa and her panel of payments experts as they address rapidly evolving needs of consumers, businesses, governments, and underserved segments.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll have to welcome Ryan to the panel. So from Visa, who's president. Thank you very much for joining us, Ryan, as well. So we're seeing the negative impact of the pandemic affecting economies around the world. But at the same time, we've seen an acceleration in e-commerce and consumer behavior. With respect to your industry, what trends are you each seeing? And which of those trends and behaviors do you expect to stay versus eventually go away? So Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, everyone, for having me today. It's a privilege to be here. Looking forward to the discussion. I mean, listen, a lot of things have changed with how people engage in commerce over the last many months. I'll mention a couple. They may be obvious to people, but the magnitudes of the shifts might be less obvious. Obviously, there's been a massive shift of buyers and sellers online. We've seen a significant increase in kind of Visa credentials that are active in e-commerce. It's up, 50 to 100% in some of the developing markets and 15% globally, which, with a base of more than 3 billion credentials is certainly a big change. We've also seen the spend per active credential or active user up over 25% in e-commerce. So buyers and sellers shifting significantly online, but also the way people engage in commerce in the face-to-face world has changed dramatically. Nobody wants to use cash. Touchless is king. So contactless now outside of the Americas is 75% of all face-to-face Visa transactions. And in places like Singapore or Australia or New Zealand or other parts of Asia, it's 90% or more. I think tap to phone, so turning phones into contactless acceptance devices, is sweeping rapidly across Asia and other parts of the world. And then you've got, on-demand everything and what I call e-commerce IRL, or e-commerce in real life, which is, order ahead, buy online, pick up in store. So that the whole face-to-face shopping world is changing. And I'm often asked, will it stick? Like, will these behaviors stick or will they revert back? And what's fascinating is in markets that are closer to post-COVID than they are certainly where I am in the US, like New Zealand or Australia, where Anthony is, we're looking at the data very closely, and it's fascinating. When economies get closer to a post-COVID world, e-commerce spending is staying elevated, and face-to-face spending is becoming not just where it was pre-pandemic, but even higher because people prefer this way of shopping. So very, very interesting trends that we're seeing around the world.
And Anthony, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, look, very, very similar. I think the word or the adjective that you use is the right one. It's an acceleration. It's not a change. Prior to COVID, as a business, we've been growing over 100% per annum in the US, over 350%. So there's been a shift that's occurring anyway in a couple of respects, which I'd love to raise. It's not just been the shift to e-commerce from our perspective, but it's also been what we've perceived to be, a very strong trend from what I'd call the credit economy to a debit economy, particularly for millennials, which are growing in importance in the broader economy. We've seen that accelerate, using your adjective. So a lot of the customer responses that we observed coming out of the global financial crisis, a desire to use their own money, to budget, to have very simple and transparent ways of going about purchasing. That's been the trend that we've observed over the last 4 or 5 years, increasing and fueling our business. But during COVID, if anything, it's accelerated. So not a change, but definitely an acceleration. To Ryan's point, I'd completely concur in terms of what we've observed within our business. We're a predominantly online business, but in Australia and New Zealand and growing now in the US, we've got a considerable element of our total turnover, which is in-store, which is face-to-face using the digital application of AfterPay in-store. Very interesting, as we've seen, particularly in Australia, probably come out of lockdown and get back into mainstream faster than other areas of the world. We've seen no change in what we perceive to be this structural uplift in online, so it's continued. But in-store has come back very, very rapidly. But one hasn't compensated for the other. We've seen a sustained uplift in both.
And Prajit, from your perspective?
I think we've seen, and completely agreeing with what Anthony and Ryan have been saying, we've seen a very interesting shift, right? Like when the pandemic actually started, no one had a clue where is it going, how is it going. But luckily, we got a 360-degree view because of the number of industries we serve. And we saw when the pandemic started, gaming volumes, e-learning volumes, e-commerce volumes really shoot up. At the same time, travel got significantly impacted. Now we see that travel, especially on the domestic side, is back significantly. E-gaming, e-learning, they're at a peak. Means we've seen 100% increases, 200% increases for some people. Rapid acceleration of any kind of digital projects. So if you're a bank who wanted to kind of plug into Nium to offer instant real-time payments on a cross-border level, those conversations used to be 6 to 18 months. Now we are seeing 3 months, 4 months. Sometimes conversations with banks, my favorite conversation with banks used to be, they say, hey, we want to go live in October. And I used to be say, which October? And now they used to tell me that, hey, we want to go live in October 2020, which I think is a great, massive change, rapid acceleration. But I think the key thing, we need to be careful and we need to be really cautious as well. A lot of positive trends, but how to hold those positive trends, and that all comes back to players like us. Giving you a very small example is when the pandemic hit, a lot of the offline remittance moved to online remittance. What I mean by that is that a lot of people who used to queue up at various points to send money cross-border suddenly said, okay, let me use the app to do that. But what we are also now seeing that now with things slightly opening up in quite a few countries, people are actually preferring to go back to the offline channels. Now, how do we hold these customers and continue to provide them great service, a seamless application to their needs is going to be crucial. So, it's really good positive points, but how do we hold this so that impact we've made doesn't reduce and continues to add value?
Yeah, Prajit, you bring up a great point, which leads me to my next question. I mean, who would have thought 11 months ago, as all of us were sitting in board meetings looking at 2020 budgets, that we were going to be faced with, the pandemic that we were. And so now, a year later or 11 months later, as you're sitting and thinking about 2021, how has the pandemic changed your organization's way of thinking when it comes to planning your business and building products and solutions for the future? Ryan?
Dramatically is the short answer. I mean, we are going to be such a different company on the back end of this than we were coming into it. And I think a better, smarter, faster, more agile, more community-focused company. I might share 4 quick things. One is, I think we have realized the importance of investing in our communities. I think we were always a big supporter of our communities, the small businesses in our communities. But, this has really shined a light on the importance of our communities for all of our success. And so we've really highlighted the need to invest in the more than 200 countries and territories around the world that we do business. The second is it's forced us to ruthlessly prioritize. I mean, just absolute ruthless prioritization, given the need to manage our expenses in this environment, but also to continue to invest in the future. And we're going to carry that forward. I think as a company, we're much better about our transparency, our prioritization, about what we need to focus on that's going to drive growth and impact for our clients. So that's been a big change and evolution for us. The third thing I would say, which I'm sure is similar to other companies, we've had to turn our product pipeline upside down and make sure there were a lot of things that were on our roadmap 6, 12, 18, 24, maybe 36 months down the road that we had to figure out how to get out the door and ship product in 60 or 90 days so that we could support a lot of the things that I was mentioning earlier, enabling e-commerce IRL, enabling tap to phone, enabling contactless in a lot of markets at the point of sale around the world. And then the fourth thing I would mention, Melissa, is we've started a big effort inside of Visa to just reimagine how we work. And we're using the learning opportunities that we've had in this environment to create a blueprint for how we want to run the company going forward on the back end of this. And, as I mentioned, it'll be very different. How our employees work, where they work, how we team across the organization. We've used this as an opportunity to create a new blueprint for how we reimagine work at Visa, which, we're very excited about. So a lot of changes and a lot of good, hopefully, that'll come out of what's been a very, very difficult period.
And Ryan, just one follow-up before we go to Anthony. Do you see that it could be different across the world, that the work environment in Asia could be different than the US or Europe when it comes to perhaps in-person, remote, how teams are formed?
Yeah, I do. We are a 100% client-oriented business. Visa really only exists because of our partners and our clients who choose to do business on our platform. So we have to always be client first in everything we do. As a company, I think what you'll see from Visa on the back end of this is a much more flexible approach to how our team members can do the work that they need to do. But I think how our partners and clients work is going to be different in different parts of the world. As you said, I actually think in different parts of Asia, it'll be different, as it will be in Latin America and versus Europe and North America. So the way we've got to thought about our blueprint is that there's a foundational element of how our teams want to work and how we team the company, our remote work policies, all those types of things. But then, it'll have to be put to market a little different based on how our clients choose to work. And, if our clients need Visa team members in their offices 5 days or 7 days a week, we have to be there to support them. And I think in other markets, our clients will have a much more virtual and remote approach. And in the market I sit in right now, the United States, my best guess is we'll have companies that are at very different places out of the gate, and we'll have to support both those.
Great, thank you. And Anthony, from your perspective, 2021, how's business?
Well, it's interesting what you said about sort of the period we went through, which was so much to learn from and so much to pivot from. I remember in the middle of March being in quarantine, coming back to Australia after being in the US, and I just missed the curfew. And on the way to a place with a few laptops under my arm, it was an incredibly bewildering and difficult period. I mean, our share price had dropped 80%, but nothing had changed from the perspective of our business. But, everybody was looking at you'd have to be very brave to say that there was anything other than a huge headwind that you were walking into. And as a team, one had to respond to that. Obviously, in hindsight now, what turned out to be a perceived headwind was quite a strong tailwind. But the huge lesson from that was just the incredible capability of people that were in our team. And to see people step up over this period has been pretty extraordinary under very, very difficult circumstances. So we're obviously a much smaller company than other examples, but to move everybody remotely within a few days, to see people go through, enormous strain wherever they were in the world, where for us, whether it be Singapore, the UK or in the US, there was a lot of different changes there, but it was remarkable what got turned around in terms of a response plan. And the core focus when the world was going, asking all these questions was, who are our core stakeholders? And when we really focused in on our customers and our merchants, it gave such an obvious grounding to everything that we do every day. And to see the ingenuity that was put into things like onboarding thousands of businesses that had no other course of business than other to get online, and saw AfterPay as a facilitator to connect with customers through our platform, drove a whole series of activities that were really focused on the situation, but our core constituency. And it was also amazing to see our customers, which are millennial driven, really wanting to support local businesses, take a real core valued approach to what was going on around them. So to concentrate on those elements really gave us a massive grounding. What turned out to be the case was that what we were doing prior to COVID was exactly what customers and merchants required during the pandemic, and heightened that awareness. But it gave us a very important, strong grounding for our business. I think we've learned a tremendous amount about ourselves during the process. So for 2021, it will always be about, I believe, putting our team first, creating the mechanisms through which we organise together, have respect for what we do every day, and really just making sure every decision we make relates to the only two important stakeholders in our network, which, aside from our team, is customers and merchants. And, like what Ryan's mentioned, reprioritizations, focusing and having an awareness of these things that really matter in what's turned out to be an accelerating environment, as opposed to one which has caused us or required us to go backwards or slow down, is to us, where we're focusing our attention and our organisation. Because when you accelerate, there's actually more things that you could do. But focusing back on the really important core drivers is where we want to set our minds to for 2021.
Great. And Prajit, as a small company, right, and of course, everyone in the venture-backed companies had a flashback of 2001 and 2008, when the pandemic sort of hit. From your perspective, clearly, looking at the way business planning and rolling out products, can you give us perspective from a venture-backed company, what you had to go through this past year and how you're thinking about 2021?
I think we did an interesting exercise during peak of COVID. So I got my leadership team together and we said that, hey, the world is going to massively change thanks to COVID. The impacts are going to go in not only 2021, 2022 as well. So why don't we go back individually, spend a couple of weeks and say, hey, what is the impact going to be? How is the world going to change? And what do we need to tap into the change? And that actually has now become a playbook, right? So we picked up a lot of interesting, a lot of our colleagues came up with different stories of how we need to over-communicate, not only to our clients, but also to our internal colleagues. Also about ruthless product prioritization. Product prioritization now mirrors which markets or which industries are growing, right? So travel was 20% of our business before COVID, and now it's become much smaller, but the other industries have grown. So do we still create products for travel, knowing that it'll come back in 2021, 2022, or should we focus on gaming and e-learning sectors, which are really bursting through seams? So actually that playbook has really helped, because if you really think about it, we were able to get in early, understand exactly how this is going to pan out. Honestly, we didn't expect such faster recovery. A part of us is still conservative that some of the economic recovery is also directly related to the government padding of actually funding companies. If you look at Singapore, the government has taken such fantastic care of SMEs, the PPP program in the US, etc. So we still feel that once that gets relaxed, you'll still see some kind of impact. And we are working towards it. So the product prioritization, people communication. But I have to give credit to all the 400 colleagues. They have really rallied hard. And to be honest, I never, as a founder, I think it's such a joy to see everyone really pick it up. People are, remote working, and I'm sure everyone agrees, is not easy. And if people spend 10 hours at work, now they do 12 to 13 hours without realizing it, right? So mental impact to colleagues, etc. These are very important things which we picked up. I think I'm closer to my team now than what I was earlier. Hey, as a founder, I really miss walking and disrupting into a meeting, which I can't do anymore on Zoom. But in reality, a lot of credit to our colleagues to have really bounced back, because some of them got COVID, some of them had to recover out of it, coming back, delivering services, productivity is all-time high. So if I really think about it, customers, but our colleagues have really shaped up. So a lot of credit to them to really bounce back, not only from what they read, what they see in the newspapers, but actually sitting and spending 12, 13 hours really delivering great quality work. But product is going to be super key. Going into 2021, 2022, travel, we still believe travel is going to bounce back the big way. Like, look at me, like I have massive pent-up demand to travel. I really want to get out of Singapore. I can't though, right? So the day it happens, I'm sure there's got a lot of interesting nuances and changes which are going to be coming through. So players like us are now thinking, how do we evolve our stack to ensure that we capture the pent-up demand, which is definitely going to come back in travel in, I would say, H2 2021 onwards.
Great. Well, I am sure there's a couple of your fellow panelists here who are looking forward to getting back to traveling again. Switching gears a little bit. So Ryan, how has Visa evolved its strategy to work with various partners in your ecosystem, including fintechs, different financial institutions, and merchants around the world?
I'm ready to get on a plane and go anywhere where someone will see me, by the way. I'm dying to go see clients and partners, so whenever we can. Thanks for the question, Melissa. This has been a big change for Visa. I think our strategy over the past 3 to 4 years has evolved significantly, and it's evolved as commerce has evolved, which we absolutely need to do. So our goal is to be the platform and partner of choice for any company that's participating in commerce or money movement anywhere in the world. That's what we want to be. And to do that, we've had to evolve our strategy from effectively being the world's best payment network for credit cards or debit cards or traditional payment products to being what we call a network of networks that can enable money movement for a wide array of partners, a wide array of use cases for governments, businesses, and consumers around the world. And, it's one thing to say the words, but the actual work that our team members around the world have done to make that come to life over the last many years, the last, I'd say probably 3-4 years, has been significant. It's been about changing, mindset, behaviors, kind of how we think, how we work. And we feel good about the results. We really feel today that we are the partner of choice for fintechs that are in the commerce space, that are in the money movement space. If you look around the neobanks around the world, I think Visa's the partner of choice. Peer-to-peer players, payroll, remittances, buy now, pay later. The digital wallet players, B2B banking. I think you go down those segments and others, and you look at the leaders in each of those verticals, they're Visa partners. And they want to do work with Visa because they want to access our platform, our people, our products, our services, our capabilities. I hadn't really thought about it till we got on today, but this panel is, it's a pretty good microcosm of that. We're investors with you, Melissa. We're a limited partner. We're investors in Prajit's company, as well as they are a very important partner of ours, and they leverage our products in many different ways, as well as Anthony's company. So we're partners with all of you, and that really is our goal. We want to be the premier partner and platform that fintechs around the world can use to create great experiences and really wow their users and their stakeholders.
Great. Well, Anthony's going to, he promised me he was going to give us some interesting insights into consumer behavior. So, Anthony, as far as consumer behavior has changed in average order values, I'm sure the audience would love to understand what people were buying pre-COVID and what they've been buying more of during COVID. And then, a follow-on to that is, does it differ by geography?
Yeah. I'd love to really just make up a really interesting answer for you, because you put pressure on me to give, some really interesting insights. But let me tell the truth first, and then I can tell you a couple of interesting little tidbits. But our customer base is amazingly consistent. We focus, the average age of our customer is, we've got about 12, 13 million customers around the world. The average age is about 33, which is the mature millennial. And our data shows that actually older demographics are now joining our network in increasing numbers as our acceptance around the world broadens too. Amazingly consistent and similar purchasing patterns throughout COVID. It was very interesting in the first couple of weeks, but I would only say a few weeks really, where you could see this very significant shift from what I'd call lifestyle purchasing, normal lifestyle purchasing, to necessities, homewares and the things that are very sort of basic requirements. But what surprised us was, even after a few weeks, into lockdown, and we watched it state by state in every state of the US, and then the UK, and then into Australia and New Zealand. Retail, apparel, beauty products, jewelry products, all of the things that just go hand in hand with what I'll call a normal course economy and environment, came back very, very strongly. Obviously, things like what we were talking about before in terms of travel, outdoor events, the things which were those sort of more entertainment aspects of the economy, they went down very quickly and stayed down. But from our perspective, that is also in its very initial stages coming back. So, there wasn't a whole lot of divergence in what we saw people want to do, except for those very obvious areas like travel and entertainment.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're an investor in Forder, and I remember asking Michael the same question, and he said grills. People are buying grills in the first couple of weeks of the lockdown. So I'm sure that people have gone back to more normal purchasing, behavior now. So Prajit, from your perspective, as the world is heading to an API economy, how's that going to shape the way companies serve customers and what you're doing at Nium?
Sure. So if you think like our definition of API economy is it allows you to deploy best of breed products seamlessly, securely, and fast, right? That's like a core mantra of what we believe, what we are powering. And if you really think about it, banks are being unbundled at a crazy pace, right? So 15 years back, if you wanted a loan or a travel card, you would actually walk into a bank. Now you don't. You will basically go to an SME lender. You will actually go to any of these prepaid travel card apps, etc. So what's happening at this rapid and bundling is that we're actually leading the charge that if you are a bank, you're no more stuck only offering Swift as your cross-border payment platform. Or if you're an e-commerce company, you're no more stuck only offering e-commerce as a service. You can actually rapidly deploy new range of services within that ecosystem. And you can actually choose best of breed partners. So you can choose X for payments, Y for card issuance, Z for lending. Right, so what we constantly believe at Nium is we actually cater to 130 million end customers. So that could be a Casicon bank, which has 12 million retail customers, or a bank in Middle East, which has 500,000, or a large payment app in India, which has 20 million. Whatever APIs we create, the impact is not for the few million customers, but it's actually to 130 million customers. So now we constantly believe the fact that we make it easy for anyone to just plug in and start rapidly deploying a service. So one interesting piece which we are now working on is we believe that crypto is now becoming mainstream, and we are actually building that infrastructure layer which connects crypto buying and holding into our platform. So today we do payment as a service, card issuance as a service, etc. Tomorrow you'll have crypto as a service. And suddenly all 130 million users spread across 60 different countries where our clients are based today can suddenly access buying crypto seamlessly through our platform. So the future is the API economy. The future is all about how do you make your APIs beautiful and easy to understand, and that's where we are driving the vision forward.
Great, thank you. And Ryan, back to you. What do you think organizations need to do in order to reach out to the underpenetrated segments who may not have access today to digital payments?
Right. So if you think about it, right, and this is where somebody like us, so we are a platform, right? So in reality, what we provide is an infrastructure level for anyone with a large distribution network. A great example is we've been speaking to a leading platform which really focuses on under-penetrated segments. They have about 300 million users in largely markets like Indonesia, Brazil, etc. And they've been wondering what kind of financial products can we create for them. And now you really think about it, they want to issue a prepaid card where they can actually receive monies, they can actually then use, then you start off with insurance, lending, etc. So rapid proliferation of financial services will be led by platforms, right? So it's going to be the large platforms with massive distribution networks. It could be your next e-commerce platform. If you look at markets like Latin America, Southeast Asia, the biggest differentiation is going to be bought by e-commerce platform because everyone wants to buy something online. And then what do you do after that, right? Like you've got millions of customer base. How do you add financial services to it? Okay, this guy is somebody who's buying various household need products. Okay, why don't we, and we figure out that we can give him a card, we can actually build an insurance top to it, we can start lending to it. So we strongly believe that large e-commerce platforms, buy now, pay later platforms will create the real ecosystem. And then they'll plug into somebody like us to actually build out the ecosystem for the financial services needs. But rapid proliferation of financial services in these markets are coming. So I think the numbers where people said that, hey, by 2030, we want more people to have bank accounts. We see that collapsing. I think by 2025, you will see far better numbers on people being banked, it could be a prepaid card, right? It may not be a proper bank account. But in reality, we see people having access to at least one financial product much higher in the next few years than the 10-year roadmap.
And Ryan, from Visa's perspective, what do you think organizations need to do in order to really reach the underpenetrated segment who today may not have access to digital payments?
Yeah, I agree with everything Prajit just said. I think if you back up just like for a moment to your question, it's just an incredibly important moment in time opportunity that we have right now on this topic. And, we have whatever it is, 1.7 billion people that are still unbanked around the world. And I think I also agree. I really want to build on what Prajit said. I think we're expanding the definition of what it means to be banked. Like historically, it was, a current account, you're banked, no current account, you're not banked. What's happening now is this like massive proliferation of new ways to be included into the mainstream banking system, with some of the things that Nium is doing and Prajit mentioned. I think the combined kind of the combination of connectivity, broad-based connectivity that is now accessible around the world, the creativity that we're finding from companies like Nium and AfterPay and many, many others around the world, combined with the capital that is now being invested in products and platforms that are giving broad-based access to financial services, are going to have a huge impact. And I agree that by 2025, 2026, I think we're going to be at a completely different paradigm. And in many ways democratizing financial services with a much broader base of partners, a much broader distribution platform. And, we hope at Visa that that dreamers and small companies in basements and garages all around the world can use our platform to do that. We have a global platform which is open for business, and we want to make it available to anyone and everyone that has a goal of bringing these, nearly 2 billion people into the formal financial system, but doing it in new and creative and innovative ways. And
just a follow on to that, do you see a difference in that growth between some of the emerging markets like Southeast Asia versus Africa or MENA, which is, a combination, or LATAM?
Yeah, well, I think the opportunity is certainly different, right? I mean, you have obviously in more developing markets, much bigger tranches of consumers that are not part of the traditional banking system. And, I do think where you're seeing, some of the things that I mentioned earlier, the investment and the innovation and entrepreneurship, parts of Southeast Asia, you've seen amazing progress of digital wallet players in Southeast Asia that, again, historically we might not have thought of, a customer that is a Gojek seller and user as part of the mainstream financial system in Indonesia, but now they very much are. And especially with the ability to now issue a Visa credential into that wallet, which we have together with Gojek and Paytm and M-Pesa and Rappi in Latin America, and many of the other wallets, you now have somebody who is part of the mainstream financial system. So I think the places where you're seeing the investment, the entrepreneurship, the creativity, together with a base level of connectivity that users have the ability to access, you're going to see the growth accelerate.
Thank you. Anthony's back now. He's unfrozen. So let's turn to him for a minute or so. So Anthony, one of the beauties of AfterPay has been its simplicity to understand what the company has done and really accelerated adoption. As you think forward and serving these 12 million, customers who are at an age where they're mature millennials, hopefully, with some earning power, how do you think about the future of AfterPay and products? Well, okay, we thought that Anthony was unfrozen, so we'll hold that question until he is unfrozen. But
I had to make it more challenging than it already was. I'm sorry, Melissa.
You've just reached your limit on Zoom. That's all it is. So, or on Microsoft Teams. Zoom is now over.
It wouldn't be an authentic post-COVID experience unless we had that happen. But my apologies. Do you mind repeating the question?
No, not at all. One of the magic successes of AfterPay has been the simplicity of the product, and it was so easy to understand, and it wasn't convoluted or complex, and people got it, and they started using it and became clearly avid users with 12 million. Your 12 million users who are now 33 mature millennials earning an income. How do you see building out the product portfolio, and where do you go next? As far as products go, as you're seeing this convergence happen between buy now, pay later, and neobanks and accounts and issuance.
Yeah, it's interesting when we think back as to this little term that was coined, buy now, pay later, to describe what you do. But from our perspective, the impetus of our growth earlier on was something really broader than just trying to introduce a new form of payment or a transaction option. The core innovation, I think, if you want to put it down to that, was recognizing that the customers' desires were changing. And particularly when you look at millennials, unfortunately, I'm not one, but my co-founder is. And, before AfterPay started, we spent a lot of time trying to understand something which is now very, very obvious, which is that millennials coming out of the global financial crisis really had an aversion to falling into debt traps and more of a desire to use their own money in a debit world more flexibly, but very consistently with a number of their core values, which didn't want things to get out of control. They wanted to be more in control of their own money. And they wanted products that are very transparent in a way that goes to, their core values of a generation. And what we were particularly focused on, even though it's sort of presented as a single product, was how do we build an ecosystem around that? So if you invented something that somebody wants to use once or twice and says, that's not that served my purpose for something that I just wanted to buy, as opposed to a way to pay, and involved in something that people want to do regularly, the two things are very different. When we've started to build our global platform, it was all about how do you connect, some of the best brands in the world now with a very hard to reach audience. Given the fact that millennials don't respond to things like traditional advertising and more of the ways that retailers traditionally had connected with what is now becoming the most important retail demographic in the world. Within 5 years, millennials and Gen Z will collectively represent more than 50% of the purchasing power for core retail. So what we've found is, as we've been building our platform, is that AfterPay is actually the beginning of the shopping journey for a lot of our customers. And our ability to connect with retail through our data and our platform to deliver personalized experiences and relevant experience, but more particularly, how do we promote customer lifetime value for retailers? And whether that's new customers that haven't discovered those brands or products before, or is it through just repeat purchasing and loyalty, which is such a fundamental piece of, what retailers think about every day and night, are the things that we think about. So how we build and develop our platform has been the key. So, further products can come from that, but actually further deepening the relationships between those core constituents is what we're very much about. So we've just recently announced a joint venture effectively with Westpac, one of the to promote their ability and to do more within our ecosystem. We've invented the first loyalty program in the world, which isn't based on spending more money. It's actually spending responsibly. So we're building up that ecosystem. Within that comes the opportunity to launch new products and new services, and be that to facilitate foreign exchange transactions between global merchants and global customers, be it with more things that emanate from a rewards program, be it more things that we do around transactions and savings goals, are all the things that I think you'll see from us. But it's very important for us that we do that without changing our stripes. We do represent this shift from the credit economy to the debit economy. We see that very clearly around the world and through this demographic. And we think our ability to keep tapping into that within our ecosystem will give us more of our roadmap than changing our stripes in a different direction.
Great. Well, thank you. Extremely insightful. So Ryan, just going back, small businesses are the most impacted by the pandemic today. I mean, we haven't spent a lot of time, talking about the small businesses that have truly, had to really scrape and fight their way through this. But how is Visa working with small businesses to support them during the business recovery and hopefully growth in 2021?
I mean, listen, for all of us, small businesses are critical. They're the foundation of what drives the economy. And, the truth is the economy is not going to recover to where it should be and where it was until small businesses recover. I mean, they're the key to job growth. They're the key to communities, the key to really commerce around the world. So we've been very focused on it. This is a little bit of what I alluded to maybe on your first question, or maybe your second question about how we've changed coming out of this, is we put a very big focus on investing in our communities, and small businesses has been a huge plank of that. We committed, not just in name, but inside of our company, to bring 50 million small businesses kind of into the digital economy, help enable them with the tools and capabilities they need to engage with their buyers in a digital way. We made an investment of $210 million to kind of enable micro and small businesses around the world. We launched an entirely new campaign called Where You Shop Matters. It actually came from our team in Asia. really trying to build the mindset of Visa cardholders around the world that where they actually go shop matters. It matters to their community, it matters to the economy, and they should be smart and choose. And we've highlighted a lot of small and micro businesses around the world as part of that campaign. We've also, we did something as simple as we sent out street teams. All around the world in the countries in which we work, we hired gig economy workers that were out of jobs. And we also took many other people that are on jobs, and we enabled them as street teams to go work with small and micro businesses to help them set up contactless, help them, set up their stores to enable digital payments. I think in Asia, we had something on the order of 250,000 small businesses that we touched physically with our street teams, and many more around the world. We've been focused on every angle we can. We're doing every good idea that we've come up with, because we really believe passionately that as a business community around the world, we need to do everything we can to get small businesses back up and running. When we do it, I think we'll all look back on it as one of the best and smartest investments that the business community's made.
Yeah, extremely admirable, and also you're exactly right. Until small businesses are back and operating, we won't be back. The economies just won't be back where they are. So, extremely helpful. And to that point, Anthony, you obviously deal with a lot of retailers as well. What have you guys done to sort of help enable these small retailers to survive and onboard digital payments during this period?
Yeah, we've done this massive Shop Local program, which had a couple of components to it. But I must say, as much as we thought it was important, our customers thought it was important. And that's been the most uplifting element, I think, of the last 6 or 7 months. It's been this real desire to understand that there's been so many millions of mainly small businesses that have just been completely disconnected. So it's about onboarding, which is the very first part. How do you make it really, really simple to connect thousands of small businesses, even a week, which has been the trend, to our platform in a way that we can make it seamless and easy. It sounds that it is easy just to be online and engage in e-commerce, but when you get to a very small business level, there's still a whole lot of hoops to jump through. So automation in this area for us has been a really big focus, and we did a lot of work over the pandemic to onboard thousands of small businesses. But like everybody knows, once you just turn something on, it doesn't mean that it's a panacea or it's a silver bullet and everything just works. The key things, the only reason is that it allows businesses to connect with consumers that they wouldn't have access to. So from our perspective, given that we probably in November sent 1 million leads to our retail partners from our ecosystem and our network, it's all about how do you promote small business within that? How do you create gateways for customers to really connect? And one of the most fabulous aspects of the digital economy is using data the right way. So you can actually geographically and effectively match consumers with local. Be that because some small businesses don't ship vast distances online or it takes longer. And because we've got a large part of our business, which is about in-store and the physical retail economy, it plays a large role. So Shop Local within verticals or sub-verticals has been a really big theme for us. We did launch last weekend, actually, a really big program around it, and the response has been very significant. It all comes down to illumination in our point of view. How do you take a small retailer in the UK that wants to sell to an Australian consumer in a way that you make it seamless? So, the first thing is how do you connect it? Second of all is how do you make it visible and relevant? And then how underneath all that can you make FX and the other aspects that have to go with that payment or that facilitation just work. So we've been spending a lot of time on that.
Okay, so very quickly, one last, just very simple answer from each one of you. Prajit, describe 2020.
The most learning year of my life.
Great. Anthony?
Thankful and feel very privileged just to have the team that we have and go through the experience in a way where what we're doing is illustrated to become positive, notwithstanding the headwinds.
And Ryan, from your perspective?
I think it's been a massive experiment on a global scale that nobody knew if it would work, and it seems like it has, which is pretty cool.
That's great. Well, I'd like to really thank the panelists for the terrific session and their insights as we exit 2020 and all hope for, a much calmer 2021. So thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you, Melissa, and our panel of payments experts.